The Tyranids are one of the biggest threats the Imperium faces in the current Warhammer 40k setting, and it's no exaggeration to say that they could wipe out humanity if they were left unchecked. Hive Fleet Leviathan alone has already punched massive holes in the Imperium's defenses. They are in segmentum pacificus and are heading towards Terra. The worst part, what is attacking the galaxy now is only a fraction of the entire Tyranid biomass. The rest of their swarms are still out there in the void in intergalactic space, waiting. It's a desperate losing battle and the Imperium knows it, that it is just delaying the inevitable, but the fight must go on. Here are 5 grand plans that the Imperium has to counter the bugs. Let's get to them. The first one are the Soul Blades. In the current 4th Tyrannic War, the Imperium has found itself in a desperate scramble to deal with Hive Fleet Leviathan's invasive tendrils. These monstrous appendages of the Great Devourer has now spread into segmentum pacificus, threatening to consume countless worlds, and are en route towards homeworld itself, Terra. So while the Imperium's full war machine, which is dominated by the ponderous regiments of the Astra Militarum, the Imperial Guard, while they are being mobilized to meet up with this existential threat, humanity just can't wait for the slow grind of logistics to catch up. What they need was speed, precision, and ruthlessness. Enter the Soul Blades. The Soul Blades aren't massive fleets or overwhelming armadas. They are rapid response strike forces, small, surgical, and deadly. These fleets, typically comprised of no more than 2 or 3 warships, are tasked with hitting the Tyranid tendrils hard and fast before the Xenos could fully react or establish themselves. These hit-and-run approach tactics are born out of necessity to avoid the Nid's endless swarms. The goal of the Soul Blades isn't to wipe out an entire Hive Fleet or a tendril on their own. Instead, they are meant to disrupt, weaken, and delay the Tyranids. They strike at key synaptic nodes, key bioships, and feeding swarms, sabotaging the hive mind's coordination. Each strike is meant to buy time desperately needed for larger Imperial armies to mobilize, time for hive worlds to reinforce themselves, and time for desperate gambits to be executed. These elite fleets are as diverse as the commanders who lead them. A significant number of Soul Blades are spearheaded by Space Marine chapters. The Adeptus Sororitas, or the Sisters of Battle, also play a significant role. Even the Imperium's most elite forces, the Adeptus Custodes, have contributed to the Soul Blade effort, with Captain General Trajan Valoris himself leading one of them. Even the Ninth Houses have sent in lances as part of their own. Each lance brings the unstoppable firepower of towering knight suits. The Militarum Tempestus have also formed their own Soul Blades, which are typically smaller and more focused. But the Mechanicus Soul Blades are the most mysterious of them all. All in all, their ability to strike quickly and evade capture make them perfect for their mission, but it also makes them vulnerable. In any case, these Soul Blades have managed to gain something that a larger task force or a fleet would find impossible. They have more than once gained valuable intel on the movements of hive fleets, which is something that is hidden from most due to the shadow in the warp. These pieces of info provides valuable insight on how to counter the movements of the Great Devourer and where it is headed. The second grand plan is the Firebreak. In the latest Tides show, in episode 2, we get a chilling look at how far the Custodes are willing to go under the Emperor's will to defend the Imperium. They have been sent to countless worlds with 2 grim tasks: evacuate any remaining Imperial forces and then unleash exterminators to wipe out those planets off the map. The goal? To create a Firebreak, a ring of dead worlds around Segmentum Solar, meant to divert Tyranid hive fleets away from humanity's heartlands. But here's where it gets messy. The Custodes aren't stopping at just random backwater planets. They have ordered Space Marine chapter masters to exterminate their own worlds, the worlds they've sworn to protect, including their own recruitment worlds or Fortress Monastery planets. So imagine being told to glass the very world that shaped your chapter. That is something really cold, devastating, grim dark, yet calculative. Now on paper, the Scorched Earth strategy makes a certain kind of brutal sense. The Tyranids move system to system drawn to biomass-rich worlds. By wiping out these planets, the Imperium denies the swarm their primary fuel source. If the Tyranids do follow any sort of thermodynamic principles, their fleets would have to burn through massive amounts of energy in traveling between systems. A firebreak could force them to expend more energy, moving from one barren system to another, potentially weakening their fleets by the time they finally hit a well-defended planet. But there's a big glaring flaw in this plan: gene stealers. See, the Tyranids don't just blindly roam the galaxy, they are often drawn to the psychic beacon of these gene stealer cults. And as we all know, there's already a gene stealer cult hiding on Terra itself, at least one that is known. So even if one cult on the far side of the Firebreak sends out a call to the hive mind, all bets are off. The Firebreak becomes meaningless because the Tyranids would just go straight for the signal, bypassing all that carefully orchestrated devastation. The third plan, the Weaponized neurocytes. In Leviathan by Darius Hings, the Ultramarines uncovered something that might just turn the tide of the Fourth Tyrannic War, but here it is still a hypothesis at this time. After a grim prologue, we are introduced to the Ultramarines' first company in the Hive world of Regium, which is a part of the Sanctus line, which is a critical series of defenses standing between the Tyranids and Terra, and here it is seen to be in serious trouble. The Ultramarines are on the move aboard the ship called the Incorruptible, tracking a Tyranid fleet heading towards a biomass-rich world. However, en route, the Tyranids launch a surprise boarding action, and things go south fast. The Tyranids overwhelm the ship, forcing the Ultramarines to scuttle in a last-ditch effort to deny it to the Xenos. During the battle, a massive Tyranid creature, later identified as a non-emissary, takes center stage. This monstrous beast tangles with the Ultramarines in charge, and while the Marine manages to put up a hell of a fight, he was no match for this beast, and was about to get devoured when he sacrifices himself by detonating melter charges strapped to his belt, taking the emissary out along with himself. Then the apothecary Vultus manages to capture a strange Tyranid organism described as a synapse creature, a neurogon, and on top of the neurogon was a smaller parasitic creature called a neurocyte. These serve to extend the range of nearby synapse creatures that the neurogons protect. They also serve as beacons and main nodes to control the rest of the swarm. When it was hurt by the Space Marine drilling to get it out, the bodies of dead bioforms all around it seemed to twitch and clutter. And due to this neurocyte, when Vultus first saw the Harbinger, he immediately knew its name and was somehow tricked by the ensuing psychic cloud created by these neurocytes and the neurogons into thinking that the massive creature was a warp-born entity, a neverborn, a demon. It was afterwards that Vultus realized that these neurocytes are the ones that relate psychic commands of the Harbinger, and that maybe somehow, if given enough specimens, he would be able to weaponize them against their own kind, and thus creating a backlash that would either drive or turn the swarm on itself. Well, even though this isn't an Imperium plan, I bet the tactic would be later adopted en masse in the desperate fight against the Hive Fleet. The fourth here is the World Maker. So this next one is seen in Death Worlder, a novel by Victoria Hayward. It was published in April 2024. Here, on a planet trapped in the closing jaws of the Great Devourer, the Catechan Niren III receives a final desperate mission. These warriors, also called the Night Shrikes, have to defend one of the last fortresses still standing. Led by Major Wolf Khan, she is given one last mission: to lead a squad through the apocalypse and recover a piece of archaeotech discovered by a magus of the Adeptus Mechanicus that is rumored to have its origins in Terra's past, in a dark age of technology. This archaeotech was a creator of worlds, a planet maker, and a strange terraforming device. It is most likely a very powerful STC that can make or break worlds, and might have even created the world of Lazuli itself, where the story takes place. It was thought to be able to revive dead planets and reshape barren ones, essentially reforming worlds drained out by the invading Tyranids. While this doesn't really sound like a weapon or a plan, wait till you find out what happens when it is activated in the events of the book. The magus that discovered it described it as highly unstable and was embedded within the planet's core, which means removing it was next to impossible. In the course of the story, a tech adept sacrificed herself to activate it, and thus the device was turned on. Then a wave of energy was released that spread all around the planet, transforming the world, and at the same time created ripples and disruptions on the invading Tyranids. The device unmade the world, and the planet was turned into radiant light. As it happens, the Nids began to withdraw and flee, withdrawing their feeding tendrils from the world, and the bioships started to scatter around or flee. But it was futile. The device transformed the majority of the Tyranids on the world, including the massive tendrils and the orbiting bioships as well as the entire planet, into a great big ball of energy. So in the end, this strange archaeotech was lost to its own activation, but somehow the activating unit was retrieved and subsequently sent to the Adeptus Mechanicus. Thus, if the tech behind it could be replicated in any way, reverse engineered by the Adeptus Mechanicus, then the Imperium would have a type of weapon so powerful that large chunks of the Nids can be wiped out in the future without the need of a massive engagement by the Imperial forces. And the last plan, an unholy alliance. The Tyranids are a terrifying threat that pushes every faction in the galaxy to its absolute limits. But if anyone stands a solid chance against them, it is probably the Necrons. As we have seen in the Gehenna campaign, the Silent King, the absolute ruler of all Necrons, and Dante stopped their fighting in order to face the Nids, which are said to be their common enemy. While this is highly unlikely to happen again, or anything like this would come to fruition again, there have been numerous instances where humanity had to work with other Xenos in order to combat a greater threat. Like for instance, combating Abaddon and the forces of Chaos in Vigilus in the Nakaman Gauntlet along with the Eldari of Saimhan. The Imperium's motive here is survival, while for the Necrons, more specifically the Silent King, it is his dream that the Necrons might find an organic species whose bodies would prove to be suitable vessels for Necron minds, thus finally ending the curse of his own making, the biotransference. And if the Tyranids consume everything, then it is game over for his grand plan. Thus, if Guilliman's voyage to the Pariah Nexus to confront the Silent King instead turned to be more diplomatic, then I wouldn't count this means to an end out of the picture yet. Both of them have shown to be able to work alongside other races in the past, and an unholy alliance might be something that is really needed at this time. These ancient robotic warriors, the Necrons, have some serious advantages over the Nids. For starters, they're immortal and can reanimate after being destroyed, making them nearly impossible to wipe out completely. Their Gauss weaponry disintegrates enemies at the molecular level, meaning Tyranids can't recycle their remains into biomass. Most importantly, the Necrons are purely mechanical. There's nothing biological for the Nids to consume, which makes them a bad target for the hive mind's resource-driven invasions, a net loss. So even if there is no alliance, the Imperium could do something else. It could, with the Soul Blades and the Firebreak tactics, repeat the Octaris War maneuver, and instead of pitching the Tyranids against the Orcs, they could redirect entire Hive Fleet tendrils to dormant Necron tomb worlds. And so, in the words of Ishiro Serizawa in the movie of Godzilla 2014, let them fight. So that's what we think are humanity's 5 plans on countering the Tyranids as of now. So if you like this video, then watch this other one too. And if you want to browse for other sci-fi and Warhammer content, then check out our channel. So subscribe, like for support, and we'll see you guys in the next video. Till the next time, take care, boys.